It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I'm talking with Justin Friedman, who is a former MLB player. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to play professional baseball?
Yes, I mean, honestly, the earliest memory I have was probably when I was 4 years old. Kind of had my first taste of the game. I would, run around and tell anyone who would listen, family, friends, whatever, that I wanted to play professional baseball. And I know a lot of kids growing up want to be a lot of things, and astronaut or whatever. But that was always the one that was pressed on my heart, and frankly, just never really changed. So yeah, I'd say 4 years old.
What was it like playing for George Washington University?
That was my, entrance into college baseball. So obviously a different, a level change, and entrance into Division One. I was an undersized kid, had very few offers out of high school. That was a partial scholarship, and definitely my first step into that next level, which was really important. But ultimately, it was a place where there was a lot of stuff going on and off the field that I didn't really want to be around. So that was probably the hardest year personally and professionally for me in college, I would say, and definitely ready for a change at the end of it. But it was good to get my feet wet in college baseball and, start to see what that level was going to be all about.
What was it like transitioning from George Washington to University of San Diego?
That was a really cool space in my career for me because I had a nice year in between to prepare at community college, at junior college. So I went to Ventura College in between so that you don't have to sit out a year. And that was, to me, where I made my biggest leaps and strides as far as development. That's where I learned so much, had a great year, had the opportunity to truly become a prospect and be scouted and get some real exposure out in California. And that period in between there, I feel like really changed the trajectory of my career in a lot of ways. And I went into San Diego definitely a very different pitcher and a very different player than I was when I left GW. So
What was it like putting on both jerseys under the lights?
I mean, they all represent something different. I went to 4 schools in 4 years. They all meant something different to me at those points in my career. But at the end of the day, that's just the coolest fielding, no matter who it is. White Sox, GW, Ventura College. You're representing something bigger than yourself. And when you throw that jersey on, you go out there and compete. There's no better feeling, truly.
What were some of your accomplishments during your college career? What were some of your accomplishments during your college career?
To be honest, I never really held any stock on those. I never really placed a lot of value on those. I was always focused on my ultimate goal, which was to be drafted and then make it into major leagues. So I think my sophomore year was my best performance wise, but all the first team this and all that, I never paid attention to any of those. I'd have to honestly pull them up like when you do for your little bios for the teams. But I can't say that those ever meant too much to me because they weren't really, in my mind, really relevant to where I was trying to go. But I think I really can't even remember. I know sophomore year I had some, senior year I had some, but it was just, it's all steps along the way. And I never wanted to be I never really wanted to like hang on my laurels in that sense and put too much weight on those things. I find it a little bit distracting. So
What was it like when you got drafted to the Chicago White Sox?
that was a funny and crazy few days. I mean, I had been injured that year, but I had finally developed and physically I went from being 88 to 92 to like 92 to 96 and but then I missed 6 weeks of the season, and it was my third time going through the draft now. And my family, it's just such an emotional 3 days. And first day didn't go. Second day we're out to dinner, didn't go. Come out, my bags are all packed. My truck was all loaded up with everything to report wherever I was going to have to report, and my whole truck got broken into, and everything I owned got taken. And then I didn't even get a call or anything like that. I remember it was day 3 and I was watching, I went to 4 schools in 4 years. So I'm watching all these names of all these people that I know go by, and I just didn't want to watch it anymore. And sure enough, as soon as you turn it off, right, we had to go get lunch, and my name pops up on the draft tracker, and I got drafted as we were pulling into the parking lot to go get lunch. And I just remember breaking down and just telling my family, like, we never have to do that again. It was just, the draft itself, I mean, it's an amazing feeling when you get drafted, but the draft itself is such an emotional, draining experience, and there's just so much that goes into it. And obviously it was my third time going through it, so obviously joy. I think the first emotion was probably relief, and then as I got to sit there and sit in that moment, then definitely joy. But yeah, it was a long long road to that moment for sure.
Of course, during the process of getting drafted, when you saw your name, did you get a call before saying like you got drafted and now you're a Chicago White Sox?
No, so sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You hear so many different things before the draft. It's always, oh, money saver in rounds 5 through 10, or oh, you're going to be in this slot, and oh, this team is thinking about taking you here, and this team's thinking about taking you here. And in my experience, obviously none of that ever happened. I heard all those things, but I heard all those things my sophomore year that didn't happen. And I heard some things my junior year and they didn't happen. So you get all of those little, everybody's, trying to figure out their draft board and everything like that. And some guys they'll call beforehand and say, hey, we're going to take you. And then they do, and sometimes they don't. And for me, my name just popped up on the board. There wasn't a call, there wasn't anything like that. I was just watching the draft tracker, and I had to do a double take because I just saw my name, and I was expecting a call because that's more normal, I would say. But yeah, I just saw my name and was just staring at my phone like, wait, hold on. And I had to like double check that it wasn't another Justin Friedman, and it was me. And I saw like the school, like Hope International. And I was like, oh, okay, that's me.
Of course, what was going through your head as you anticipated them to call you and you just saw it like through your phone?
I mean, it's not, that was my senior year, so that's really your last go of it. Other than that, you kind of have to be an undrafted free agent or go play indie ball so it's hard to even put into words what those days are like you're just sitting there and you've done all the things you can do, and at that point it's out of your hands. So it's not a moment that you have any control over. It's just a moment where you want to be surrounded by people that, no matter how it goes, whether it's positive or negative, those are the people that you would want around you in that situation. If it's heartbreak, those are the people you want there. And if it's the best moment of your life, those are the people you want there. And I think more about that just because it's so out of your control. And so, yeah, it's a long 3 days bunkered down with the people that care about you most and hoping for the best.
What was it like the first time you got to put on the Chicago White Sox jersey and pitch?
Man, I was so emotional. I mean, from, like I said, 4 years old, having this dream to now officially starting a pro career, and all the bumps along the way, and the 3 drafts in 3 years, and the 4 schools in 4 years. And, it's this mix of, all right, this is real now. Not that it never was, right? Because it was always real in my mind, but it's a different start than college for sure. It's a different feeling. It's a mix between that sense of like arrival, but also you're very aware of the long road ahead. Like there's the whole long road of high school and college, and then pro ball starts, And then there's this entire massive monster of a journey ahead of you as well. So it's still not, you definitely can't feel like you've arrived for too long, if at all, because you're a long way from the big leagues, even when you get there. And that's very clear. And there's definitely that sense as well.
What was it like when you finally knew, like, hey, I'm a big leaguer now. I'm playing with the biggest of the biggest?
For me, it's always just been about, I want to see how good I can get at this game. And it's been more about the skill set necessarily than like who I'm playing against, or, like a lot of those schools I went to, I played to a lot of guys who are now, in the major leagues or things like that. And for me, it's just, I want to take something that I frankly wasn't very good at and see how great I can get at it, and see how far hard work, dedication, and my focus on that one thing can take me. And beyond that, I think it's such a tricky mental game that I think if you start looking around at who you're playing against and you're sort of in awe of them, or you're like taking stock of who's around you, it can be very easy to turn that into comparison when you're not doing well. It can be very easy to get wrapped up in kind of getting outside of your lane and looking over at what everyone else is doing. And for me, it's just easier to just look at the work ahead of me and what I have to do to get better, and focus on the skill set and not, who's in the lineup.
How did it feel whenever you had your nameplate on the back of your Chicago White Sox jersey and you were seeing fans wear your jersey with your number and your name?
I never really had that, to be honest. In minors, you don't really get the nameplate, but I had some friends like make one, which was really cool, and signing the autographs and that kind of stuff is cool. It's cool. It's very cool to have those moments across your career in college and in pro ball where you're aware that what you're doing means something to somebody and it's bigger than the game. And anytime you have those moments, where you can make an impact on a kid or a fan or anything like that, like those moments are priceless. And that feeling, in whatever way it comes, is incredible. Whether it's teammates, that you hear from, or impact that you've had on people who've watched you play or followed your career. That stuff is amazing.
What was the transition like from going from the MLB to the independent when you went to Hope International?
So Hope International was my senior year of college. That was before pro ball. So that was after University of San Diego. All 8 coaches underneath the head coach left, and miserable year for a number of reasons. And so that was my last shot at it. That was NAIA, because with all the transferring and everything, I couldn't go back to the NCAA, or else I'd have to sit out and do that whole thing. So that's just a different college that I went to. That was the number 4.
What was your time like transitioning from the professionals to being a baseball instructor?
It was definitely, and still is and will be for a long time. Having that moment being released and then pivoting away from playing for a number of reasons is definitely the hardest thing I've had to do in baseball, and that's saying a lot. But I do think that the piece for me that I love most is seeing people unlock potential, seeing them do something that they weren't able to do before, and helping people, achieve different moments, whether it's that college scholarship and that's changing a family's financial situation, or whether it's taking something that was impossible for them 2 weeks ago and now they're doing it. Like all of those little moments like that, to me, are extremely fulfilling. And so that's made this transition in some sense easier, because I still get to be around those type of moments and see them happening for people, and hopefully help facilitate them in some way.
Of course, what is the Zoom INC about?
So Zone is a training facility in New Jersey that I actually trained at when I was in high school, and I coached the team a little bit and everything like that. And It's, has travel ball teams and things like that, but it's basically one of the main places in New Jersey where a lot of the hit kids in high school come in, and whether it's hitting, fielding, pitching, it's like strength training. It's pretty much a one-stop shop for anything you can need to get better at baseball.
What advice would you give college players looking to play in the professionals?
Start saving money. It's very, very different, and I think the pieces that I would want to make sure that they have in place are the financial and the mental health. I'm not really gonna, without knowing the person, I'm not really gonna give some blanket like playing advice or anything like that. I think that the biggest pieces are, you make well below minimum wage, and you're breaking leases and entering this lease, and if you're in that for a long time and you don't have the signing bonus, or if you spend the signing bonus on a down payment, or if you spend it on more frivolous things, a lot of guys are in a really tough spot in their late 20s and looking for job prospects, especially if they didn't get a degree. So the financial aspect, I think educating on that and starting to prepare if you think that's a route you're going to go, because it's tough. And then the mental health aspect, because we're just seeing so much of that, and you have to take care of yourself and find ways to get through the beast that it is. And if not, know your price and know when it's time to walk away.
Of course, what advice would you give professional athletes that are transitioning from their playing career, lacing up the cleats, to, of course, going into the real world after playing?
Yeah, nothing really, definitely at first, nothing is going to come close to pitching in front of 10,000 people. Like that feeling, if you're chasing that in your first job after baseball, it's going to be a rude awakening. For me, the hardest thing is, well, there's a lot of different things that are challenging, but it's very hard to go from a job where you're outside for 8 hours a day to, sitting indoors and doing all that. And I would say it's a balance between kickstarting, your clock financially and building the life that you want, and then also just finding that next thing that's going to be fulfilling and not just selling for the next thing that's going to make you money. And you can do both at the same time. You can work and still sample and taste and try to find something that will be enough to get you up in the morning and get you excited about your day. And I think that's the hardest part after going from something that was, a relatively, not many people are pursuing something that brings them that much joy as playing a game like that, and finding another career that does inspire you and challenge you and do all of those things and isn't just to make ends meet, I think is really, really important. But the reality also is you're probably relatively broke when you're done playing and you need to make some money. And so just finding the balance there. But it is hard, and don't expect something to feel as good as pitching in front of 10,000 people, because it's just, unfortunately, that's hard to beat.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter, jfriedman37. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you again, Justin, for your interview, and best of luck in your future wherever it may hold you.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Justin, for your interview, and best of luck.
Have a good one.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.